Money to give us. I mean, if I got a quarter to go to the Capitol Theater and buy popcorn and get in, and that was a big deal for the week. I got this quarter that I got to go to the movie, but now they hand them. And the Tooth Fairy, we got a dime under our pillow. Now they want $5 under there, or $10 for their tooth. Come on. It was a dime to get in, 10 cents for popcorn, and a nickel for the candy machine. And my mother would give us manage. She didn't have much, but she always managed to give us our quarter to go down to the Capitol. We lived we could walk right down there, and couple of cartoons and the news and two features, all for 10 cents. It's a good deal.
I think I saw my first movie there when I was like 1950 or 51. I was like 5 or 6. There was a Tarzan movie there.
Yeah.
Tarzan movie, like 1951.
A lot of westerns, Roy Rogers and Gene Autry.
We used to sneak in there, pay for one kid to get in, go up to the third floor and open up, and then we'd all sneak in there. Because in those days, we got a nickel a week allowance. And we'd all save our money and go down there and pay for one kid to get in, and he'd go up and open the door, and we'd get in there real quick and go down. And they'd come and try to find us to kick us out. A lot of us let us in there once we got in.
And the Humpkins Bakery had a truck. They would come around to the neighborhoods on a certain day, and you had a card. I was with my grandma a lot, and she put this card in the window for them to stop. And they'd watch for these cards, and then they'd stop, and they'd honk their horn, and you go out and buy what you wanted off the bakery truck. And Grandma always got me a cream puff. That was my favorite. And then the Iceman would come, and in the summer, and he'd park out there, and he'd chip off these big things that would take them in and put them in their ice box. And us kids, the boys usually would have the strength to do it, climb up in the truck, chip off some ice chips, and we'd all run away with our hands full of ice chips, while Pete was in delivering the ice. And
the thing is, you'd walk in there, like any one of us, with your parents, and the guy pointing around the counter, and he'd give you back when ham sausage was ham sausage, not grease like you get today, and he'd slip you or a winger, or something.
Kids always get treated pretty good. I remember that myself.
Yeah. Especially if you went into your parents. I don't know if you got anything.
I was with my grandma, and we always got treated pretty good.
Who the hell?
There was no supermarkets, just local grocery stores. And they had a very limited supply of stuff, So it was a different environment. We didn't see fresh vegetables in the wintertime or anything, It just wasn't something you had. It was canned, or everybody canned, everybody. In fact, when we lived up on Romberg Avenue, my dad and I, we still butchered animals. We'd butcher pigs. Right on the kitchen table. And where Werico gas station is on Romberg? At Thanksgiving, they'd have live turkeys. They'd have pens of live turkeys. And you'd get a number, you could win a live turkey, Well, you know what the results of that was? I went home and got the head cut off and plucked. Because we only had ice boxes, So you didn't keep very much. You didn't keep frozen food. You didn't keep anything very long,
Okay, this isn't easy. This goes really fast. See how that works? I'll run some more. My niece has got chickens down at the farm. That's a corn sheller. It'll also take the outsides off of walnuts.
There was jobs galore down in Dubuque at one time. Yeah, you could walk down the street and get a job any place you wanted to. Like you give us a nickel an hour to go and sell donuts. So take us up the hill and sell donuts. I had a job at where was it? The Milwaukee Freight Yards. My cousin stayed there. He said load those railroad ties on those. What do you call it there? And I took one end, and the cousin took the other end. Oh no! He says one man to a tie. And I just dropped my tie and I said, I don't want the job, and I walked away from it. Driving cab, we'd sit at the bus. The bus would come in and stop on 3rd Street there, and people would come in and they'd go to the Julian. A lot of the cab drivers would pick them up. The fare was 35 cents any place in town. They'd go around the block a couple of times and drop them off another right across the street at the Julian Hotel for 35 cents. So they took advantage of them.
I worked in the building 43 years. Our office was, when I joined it, was on 5th floor, and we had windows looking on the outside. So that was better. Later on, 30 years later, we remodeled and moved down to the 2nd floor, and that was right on the corner of the 2nd floor. We could see the parades go by. It was always a treat to be in that office. The building had multiple uses. When the Fisher companies bought it, they took the beautiful structure off the 7th floor up there, and they made it an 8th floor, and that was the home of WDBQ, the radio station at that time. Right. So the Fisher building has a great history. It's one of the older office buildings in Dubuque right now, but at one time it was the building in downtown Dubuque. Yeah. At one time, when all the lawyers and dentists were there, the restaurant was very famous. It had a round table, and the lawyers would come and go and get coffee. And politics and everything was discussed at the round table. Right. It became very famous, the round table, because all the lawyers in town would come and come to the round table and see what was going on in Dubuque.
I worked at the Galena Glove in Metairie. You know where that is? You know where Hardee's is on Romberg? Right behind there, it's a furniture place now.
It's kind of weather.
My mother worked there for 65 years, and then I worked there for 8 years. We made work gloves, and the man from Galena owned it. It was 3 generations. My mother worked for 3 generations and I worked in there, and I loved it there. I was an examiner. The ladies would sew all these gloves, and then they'd bring us, like, I think it was 10 dozen in a bundle, and we turned them right side out. We had steam hands. These were run by steam. When you started, you had blisters up and down your arms because the gloves were back here, and you had to reach and get them, and you'd forget about the hand blister. And then we would turn them inside out and look for any flaws in them. And then if they were flawed, they'd go back to the sewer, and if they weren't, we put them in a box, and they went to a boxer, put our examiner number in there, and out they went. And my mother sewed, and she was a shop lady for the union, my mom was. So, and I didn't want to join that union and pay that money, but my mother was so embarrassed that I joined just to keep her from being embarrassed. Well, how does it look when I'm the shop lady and my own doesn't even belong? Okay, I'll join, use my money, you know.
That's kind of, I don't know if they're going to, that's kind of where Garfield is closed off now. They're putting a B branch through that brick building there. That was a Galena.
Yeah, that was.
You made a mistake on the gloves. You had to stay on your own time and fix
Oh, yeah,
it.
well, that's what we did with our gloves.
Yeah.
So we sent them back, and they hated you. The sewers hated the examiners.
Yeah.
And I actually was very good at it. If their machine would skip stitches, and if you caught those, if you didn't catch them when they bought it, that glove was going to fall apart because there was all these spaces in between. So I looked at every glove before I turned it right side, and I could spot all those. And sometimes I'd send half a bundle back to the sewer, and boy, you'd get these dagger looks from these ladies, you know. They hated you because you were a good examiner. And if I put my ticket in there and it went out and all of them come back to the factory, then I was going to get blamed for it, for letting them go through. So, yeah, I got 75 cents an hour. I got paid every 2 weeks, and I got burned all over. But I went, first couple days I worked there, I went home, and my hands were so sore on these gloves. We had leather, we had all kinds of things, that I'd have to go home and soak my hands and cry. And a lot of people, 2 days and they were out of there, they wouldn't come back. But I stuck it out. And
jobs were well-paying jobs. I mean, it's not like now. You know, when I would work at the PAC part-time, which was maybe 10 hours a day some days. you'd make $100 a week, you know. But a car, and the best car you could buy was $2,400. A brand new house was $18,000, you know. So when you compare to that, that'd be like making well over $100,000 now, you know. And then we're just blue-collared people working, you know. And actually, it's maybe a little bit like, I shouldn't say this like now, but professional people didn't make too much money. My mother and father were teachers, school teachers. They almost starved to death, you know. And a doctor, a lawyer. You know, the house I live in was where the doctor in the community lived, you know. And he had money, but wasn't rich by any means. The farm thing got really bad after the war, you know, because, and we farmed, and my mother and dad taught school, but in Dubuque there was a lot of money, you know. They come John Deere, my dad come to John Deere and worked. And I went to John Deere to work. I worked there 30 years. And, you know, when I started at John Deere as a draftsman, I made $80 a week, you know. I was making way more part-time at the pack than that. But that was good wages, you know. There was cafes down there and Eagles grocery store. Those were all union jobs when I was young. When I was going to high school, I scrubbed the floors at all the Eagles grocery stores. I'd be working 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, scrubbing floors. Those are all union jobs. People were making a living at it.
I didn't have the best record in the city of Dubuque, but we worked one Saturday, and it was always the last guy in had to buy the beer can of clubs. And Cookerman from Galena, remember him with that?
Kuckelman, Charlie Kuckelman, yeah.
We were stopped at that stop sign there at 22nd Street. Yeah, I got to jump off. I come down there about 60 miles an hour. Slid in the can of clubs, and I'm in there having a beer when Stanmeyer gets in there. Writes me up a ticket. Jesus Christ.
Dubuque was known for beer drinkers. The taverns in Dubuque was called the State of Dubuque. You couldn't get a drink any place, but Dubuque Speakeasy, they formed a club. So you got a club membership and you can go in and get drinks there. Yeah. And the state of Iowa banned it, but Dubuque was kind of different. You could get a drink in Dubuque where you couldn't get it any place else.
Well, they have the cathedral. We got married there, the wife and I did, back in 1947. Father Casey, I think, was he was a red-headed priest. He wore a wig, and the church was packed, completely packed. The reason it was packed was it was a school day, and in those days the kids all had to go to school at 8 o'clock mass in the morning. I always got a kick out of getting the priest we used to run around. Took him 3 years to become a priest, and I always got him on that one. I said it was packed, and he said, "Boy, you must have known everybody in town." And I said, "No, it was a school day."
You know, it was early 60s. I'm going to be 75 this year, so it was early 60s, you know, when they had it. It was big in Dubuque and on into the 70s, but then it died out. But so I thought the guy that helped me out, you know, it was good for me when I was in high school to hit a heavy bag. And that's why I started the boxing club back up. We were up at the Y for 4 years, and we've been down here at the Dream Center for 6 years. So I've been coaching about 10 years now. But it's something that's, you know, it's an outlet. You know, I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but I got to go to classes for safety. We wear headgear, you know. It's as safe as football. I just leave it at that.
Shepley Jewelers, that's where I bought my wife's wedding ring.
How much did you pay for that? How much did you pay for that?
Oh, that was like how I paid for it. I'd come home, or, you know, a lot of times I wouldn't even come home. I lost my mother when I was 18, my dad when I was 19. Very well, free rule. And sometimes I wouldn't even go home. I was working with Drew Anthony.
Oh.
And I'd sleep. You never locked the cars, used cars, you know. You just I crawled in one and sleep in it. He come over and wake me up. So after about 2 months of this, one of the mechanics over there, he was a MTC, Miller,
That's right.
Miller, Torberg, and Clancy.
Yes.
And they come in there one noon, and I was just, they were eating their lunch, and I went, no, come here. When you get done, we're done eating. You're going with us. Took me down across the street and took me in that jewelry store. And that's where I bought my wife's engagement ring.
For God's sake.
They took me down there and said,
About time, huh?
about time. Can't be putting up with this or you'll be in jail. Yeah, 59 years. I guess I got to thank her for being out of jail.
I never did anything famous, but I think I've done a lot of good things in my life. Nobody else will never know about it, but I feel satisfied with it, I can look at myself in the mirror. One day I took something back to Hy-Vee. I thought it wasn't in my bag, and I went and told them, and they gave me another one. And when I got home, I found the other thing, and I took it back the next week. And they couldn't believe I would bring that back. And I said, I have to look at myself in the mirror. It was a simple thing, a couple dollars, but I don't feel. At a point in my life when I was younger, I might have kept it, but as I got older, I think gotta look at yourself in the mirror and sleep at night.
If you really want to be a person, a really creative person in your life and enjoy life, you got to create things. That's what human beings are about, being creative. And I don't care if you write a book or make a sculpture or you glue a piece of furniture together. Or create something different. That's what life is really about. And there's so much satisfaction in it, huh?
Volunteer is the most important thing you can do in your whole life. It starts opening doors for you. So you can go on different areas. It's just magnificent. One volunteer will lead to another project. And it goes on and on. It makes you happy, and it's given back to your community.
I know a guy looked like an old hermit, and he would give you the shirt off of his back, if you really got to know him. Yeah. And I just have learned to not judge people by how they look.
That's one Paul McCartney's song about ebony and ivory. That's about that,
Yeah.
good and bad. I play that on the harmonica.